throwing the slates up everywhere, so we're ready to go. Just give me a signal when you're looking to start.
Yeah, I think we're a minute or two away.
And Phil is wanting the speakers to make them
I'll jump in. Yes. On act.tv.
Yeah, we have to back up a little.
Act.tv, yes. Yeah, we're trying to make it do amazing work. It's sort of like I think it's like kind of thing that came together last minute.
Yeah, you want to use this.
Sorry, this mic. Yeah, that mic is.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't want to mess up.
Cool, it's off, but you can turn it on whenever you're ready. And just talk normally, and I'll adjust it, up or down.
All right, we can start like right here.
Actually, that's
That'll be perfect.
Alright.
Cool, thank you.
That works.
Plus, you can hang out in the sun a little bit on the sun.
You all go
We're
up.
up everywhere.
Yeah.
We're live everywhere, so we're good to go. Great.
Yeah, we want to make it look like we got people. People are good.
Yeah, get some people in there.
The one thing is I wouldn't stand in front of the speaker. Make sure you're aside or.
All right.
Switch. Now switch out.
Hello. Good morning to everyone, everywhere. We are here live at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Hello, thank you. And thank you so much. This is very important, y'all, from everywhere. All the people watching, all the people walking down the street. We have residents here from Gulfport, Texas, who came all the way here because their voices were not being heard. And they wanted to make sure that their communities were protected against dangerous liquefied natural gas exports that are toxic, that are killing community members, and that harm our national security. So we're going to start off with our first speaker. First and foremost, hi y'all. If you don't know me, my name is Carrie Fulton, and I'm with the Center for Oil and Gas Organizing. If you don't know us, that's okay, because what we really want you to know is about these leaders right here in Gulfport. And also not just Gulfport, but also in Freeport and across the Gulf Coast, who have said no more to LNG. And first off, we have Melanie Oldham, who is going to speak with us, and she's with Citizens for Clean Air and Water of Brazoria County. Did I say Brazoria right? That's right. And so we so much appreciate you for coming out here.
Thank you, Carrie. Yes, we're standing here in Washington, D.C. in front of the FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. We are here from Freeport, Texas, Freeport, Texas. My group, Citizens for Clean Air, Clean Water in Brazoria County, I came to D.C. with some of my other members, which will speak later. We live in Freeport, which is an hour south of Houston. It's a EJ community, low income. We live right next door to Freeport, We are surrounded by Dow Chemicals' largest complex, Phillips 66, Chevron, BASF, and also Freeport LNG. And we live right next door to all these companies, and including Freeport LNG. And as y'all know, there's so many LNGs already up and down the Gulf, Louisiana, all the way down to Texas. And there's a multitude of proposed LNGs. I have a map here. It's overwhelming, the number of proposed LNGs in the Louisiana and the Texas coast. As far as Freeport LNG, we're here today to speak to that and our concerns. My group, we have been fighting or opposed to this LNG for a long time. We remember when they were a small import facility on beautiful Quintana Island. They said they would never, ever export. But as you know, fracking happened. And in 2010, Michael Smith, the billionaire owner of Freeport LNG, decided to make it into an export facility. It took until 2019 for the plant to be constructed and opened. And a lot of us were very shocked that they decided to build the liquefaction plant on Quintana Island, because what they built on was a Port Freeport dredge material placement site. And those are known to have soil sedimentation. But anyway, they went ahead and they did put piling and concrete, but a lot of us feared that there would be pipeline problems. But anyway, they built on Quintana Island. Then they built the pre-treatment plant, which is the same size on the other side of Freeport. And so just real quickly, as you know, the LNG process is dirty. It's a bad process from cradle to grave. And it starts out with the gas, the Permian Basin. The pipelines all come to our area. Then the gas goes through our LNG pre-treatment plant, and they clean the gas and take out certain things. Then what they do, Freeport LNG pipes this gas that has been cleaned at the pre-treatment plant. They pipe it through our beautiful wetlands, marshes, and they pipe it over to Surfside Island. Then it goes underneath our intercoastal canal right to Quintana Island, where that gas is put into 3 gigantic tanks, and they freeze it to minus 260 degrees Fahrenheit. Then they pipe it onto these gigantic LNG ships that load 2 at a time normally. And since they opened, I have a notebook. We've been following all the many violations they've gotten from PHMSA and from TCEQ regarding their pipelines, their tanks having cold spots. And our worst fears came true on June the 8th. There was a terrible explosion. It was I think 450 feet high vapor cloud that exploded. There was a fire that followed. And you'll hear from people that will speak from our community that experienced or heard that terrible explosion. But what we're concerned about is the public, we have not been given any details or a report about what the investigation by FERC and FERC has shown about what was the root causes of that terrible explosion. We've heard rumors like operator error, pipeline issues, but we don't know for sure. So we are demanding, we had written, my group, Citizens for Clean Air, Clean Water in Brazoria County, 3 months ago. We wrote a letter and it was sent to FERC and DOE, and we demanded or requested 3 things. 1, our community, Freeport, Surfside, and the surrounding area, we want FERC and PHMSA to have a public meeting to come and tell us the results of that investigation. Also, number 2, their emergency response plan, we feel, failed that day, June the 8th. There was no sirens, no warning of what was going on the island. And 3, we know that the PHMSA and FERC especially FEMSMA, needs to update their regulations over LNGs. The regulations are 40 years old, and they were written regarding LNG import facilities. And now, as you know, the LNG facilities are export. We live in fear with the risk every day of another explosion, either in the pipeline, the tank farms, or on the island, the liquefaction plant. So again, we are here to express our concerns. And final thing is, we know that where they build a lot of these LNG plants are on the coast, but there's subsidence, there's soil sedimentation. We know, we've heard from people that work out there that the pipes are sinking somewhat underground. There's all sorts of issues that they've been trying to fix. But we also know other LNGs, like Cameron LNG, we've been told has similar problems. That's why it's so important for FERC and FEMSMA to tell us public all the root causes of the explosion out there, because unfortunately, or probably, other LNGs may have similar issues and problems. So anyway, I have a couple of my fellow community members here that would like to speak. I think we're going to start out with my friend Manning Rollerson from Freeport, Texas, and he's going to talk a little bit about what he felt about the explosion and other issues.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I would like to say my name is Manning Rollerson. I'm from Freeport, Texas. I live on the Gulf Coast. The day of the explosion, I live a mile away from LNG. The day of the explosion, there was no warnings. No phone calls from our community system for emergencies. No robocalls, nothing. I found out that afternoon at 5 o'clock on the 5 o'clock news about the explosion. Okay, my issue with all of this. I lived on the east end of Freeport the majority of my life. We have always had environmental spills. We have always had spills in the air and in our water. But we have no lack of transparency, and we have no oversight. So if we don't have no oversight, then these places like LNG, they can operate without safety measures. Okay, if the rules are old, 40 years old, wasn't it supposed to be updated for this present time? Since it's not importing, it's exporting. So that changed. I am a member of International Longshoremen's Union, local ILA 30 in Freeport, Texas. I work them docks, okay? I have 27 grandkids. I watch my mama, I watch my grandmother, I watch my auntie, my uncle, I watch every last one of them die from cancer. Babies in our community being born with cancer. We had a little young lady named Abigail. She's from Lake Jackson. Her last wish is to be a policeman. So all the policemen in the state of Texas made her an honorary policeman. They made it on national news. Well, Abigail succumbed. But my case in all this, how is it possible that children are being born with cancer in our communities? And why the mortality rate is so high for the senior citizens? We have a commissioner and we have county judges that has always been on the tape. We have a problem with people that cares about our health and safety. It's been like that for quite a long time. I have a federal case that's being investigated right now by DHS against the Port of Freeport, the Army Corps of Engineering, and the City of Freeport. based on Title VI and based on the Civil Rights Acts of 1965 and 64. Because the majority of the people on the east end of Freeport are minority people that was designated to the east end of Freeport in 1932 by C.W. Collins, made the segregation order. So all the plants and everything is surrounded the east end of Freeport. Then the Port of Freeport decided to landlock everything around the city of Freeport and within the city of Freeport. So now we have all these petrochemical plants that come into Freeport, and we have all the pipelines coming into Freeport. Our population is dwindling, but the plant growth is 110%. So the industry is growing in Freeport, but the population is dwindling. My name is Manny Robertson. I thank y'all for listening to me. Y'all be blessed.
Thank you, Manny. Thank you, thank you. And we want to acknowledge the heavy that just was put on us. You have children dying of cancer. You have communities that are not safe because of dangerous fossil fuel exports. Now, as our leaders are meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh for COP27, we are right here in Washington, D.C., calling on our government to do more to protect our communities. Now, next, we have Gwendolyn Jones, who's also going to talk about her experiences as a community resident and also as a worker, as a person who is in the industry, who sees what's happening and knows that y'all can do better. Thank you, Miss Gwen. How you doing?
I want to thank everyone for this opportunity, because in all the years of my life, no one have ever had an opportunity to voice their opinion or to have the knowledge of what was going on. The day of the explosion, the day of the explosion, I had left the meeting and I had got a phone call regarding the explosion at LNG. I had went to the site, but I couldn't get it over the bridge to get to the site. But I saw people that was leaving the beach. And I knew that that was out of compliance, because you do shelter in place. Anytime there's a gas release, any kind of exposure, toxic exposure, you do shelter in place. But they were evacuating the people off. They never gave any indication of what chemicals was being released, no update, nothing. The horns wasn't even blowing. So I left the destination where the fire was at LNG, and I went back to the east end, which is right next to LNG. My friends that was there had said there was 3 explosions. The first one was a black ball, and then it was 2 with white smoke. But they were sitting outside eating, because all our lives of growing up on the east end, no one from any facility or should have been accountable for the chemicals that were in the environment of the harm that it would do to people ever came and talked to the people in the community. They didn't see the need to leave. And if I wasn't a part of this, I wouldn't have understood the need to leave regarding the harm of the toxic chemicals. The people that on the east end was a segregated area, but it was majority minority. No one saw the need of the life and the value of the people. And to me, that hurts more than anything. But another thing is that working in the plants, operators don't understand the chemicals. They don't understand the MSD. Nobody never go and tells them, you know, what's in the pipeline, what's to happen. We do respiratory once a year, but no one have a respiratory you can take out your locker, and if you have to evacuate, you have that, and you have the gears on to protect yourself. The industry has really neglected the citizen, not only of Freeport, but of Texas, because no one have knowledge of where all this sickness coming from, this death is coming from, liver cancer, lung cancer, breathing cancer. I could breathe as a child. My mother could breathe. Heart problems, all kind of conditions that came from the plant. Water contamination. Couldn't understand why there were no fishes in the water. The water was contaminated from the plants. No one never told us because they didn't want us to be informed. But one thing I do know is that our parents loved us. And the community, we was a family. If we would have known it, we would have tried to do something about it, but we wouldn't have stayed there to die because our life is more valuable than the plant. And due to the fact that since they have these plants there, and I am now knowledgeable of what's happening, I hold them accountable for educating the people, for taking care of the people with health problems. We didn't have health insurance. When you got cancer, you got medicine that's real expensive. We all had to put in money in order to pay for it. No one cared about the people. There was no alarms. The alarms, and even at LNG, they didn't sound the alarms for over, I say, about maybe an hour. And they still didn't disclose what chemicals was being exposed. But I saw the fire trucks. I saw the ambulances. And I also saw from a distance. The Coast Guard is not responsible. They have never evacuated a plant or emergency from a plant before. On top of that, you have to have special training for it. By the ambulances were permitted to go over there to get people who was injured, even though at the same time they were saying people weren't injured. I knew people was injured. And I know there's a possibility of fatalities because of the blast of the explosion. It's so many people around there, you can't help but someone being hurt. I've been in plants most of my life. And so anyway, what they did from my perspective, they put the people on the ambulance and they transport them off the ambulance to a secure location where helicopters was located to fly them off to whatever hospital that they were waiting to assist them for their medical needs. I said this a long time ago. The plant is surrounded by a brick wall, and I said it before, I do not trust them. Trust is earned. And if you want the people in the community to be able to trust you, then you have to be able to tell the truth. And so far, no one have been able to tell the truth. But most important, I hold the city of Freeport accountable. They could not come in now unless the city of Freeport had given them permission to come in now. Freeport is a cancer cluster area. They've been dumping, we've been having plants in there since 1940. We almost a year, no cleanup, no acknowledgement. So this is why I feel that all these plants wants to come down and pipelines to Freeport because no one has ever been held accountable. So why wouldn't you come down when TCEQ don't do their job and then you got people that died, but you don't care, you don't held accountable for it. And I heard a man from Dow telling me how good the plants are, and I had to tell him, I don't recall you coming down to the East End. I don't recall you giving condolences. I don't recall you attending a funeral. I don't recall y'all doing anything for the people because you don't have value of our lives. You only have value of money. They don't even have value of their own family because the most important thing to them is production, and at the end of the year, they see how much money they make, and they get a bonus. So the deal is that they have no value. You could be going, you think you're valuable. You could be here today and gone tomorrow, and they got somebody in your place. What I want to tell people is that value your life. You have families. You have loved ones, and you want to live to see your kids, your grandkids. The job is not that important. Yes, but God will make a way. But you only have one life, and when that life is gone, you cannot take that life back. The hurt and the pain of me just finding out what's going on, finding out why all these questions I was asking, it didn't make sense what was happening. It was all because of the plants. All the doctors know that Freeport is a cancer cluster area. The water's contaminated, the air's contaminated, and everything contaminated. They intentionally contaminated the rivers. They intentionally contaminated the air. Thank you.
All right now. We want to make sure and hold that heaviness. And we came out here today, and I'm going to pass this over to Melanie. And we got Herb Scott from the Capitol Hill Jazz Foundation to stand in solidarity, because we are asking everyone watching this to lift every voice, lift every pen, open up that laptop, and you write FERC. Hashtag is Freeport to FERC.
Thank you, Carrie. Yes, I want to thank Gwen and Manning for speaking. What they're talking about, as you know, is environmental injustice that has gone on in our community for decades. We're an environmental justice community. We live on the coast. We suffer from all the issues with climate change. We have hurricanes, tropical storms. And we are here again in front of FERC in Washington to again appeal to Chairman Glick and the other commissioners of FERC to follow through on what they started a few months back, to say they were in approving or not approving LNGs. They would look closer at environmental justice, communities and issues, and also at climate change. And for whatever reason, they seem to back off of that, and we need their protection in our sacrificed communities. We were saying, LNG plants, the pretreatment plants, the pipelines, the liquefaction plant put out terrible greenhouse methane. We need protection from that. The FERC commissioners have the ability to start protecting us regarding these LNGs and not approve anymore. There's so many proposed LNGs right now up and down the Louisiana and Texas coast. We do not need any more, and I think in our opinion, Freeport LNG, we don't need to reopen that plant. We do not need to ever expand it. The reality is, since they quit exporting so much of our LNG from Freeport LNG, our local utility costs have dropped. They don't want people to realize that, but when we don't export all of our LNG as quick as possible for them to make bukus of money because of greed, we are asking the FERC Commission to continue with PHMSA, do a thorough investigation of all the many problems out at Freeport LNG, and to step in and protect us. Thank you.
Thank you for that. So we have some statements of solidarity real quick, because Freeport is not alone. As we mentioned before, this is happening all across coastal communities, whether it's Baltimore, whether it's Chester, whether it's Gulfport, whether it's Port Arthur, Texas, and we are standing in solidarity. So we have Haley Duncan of Sierra Club, and she's going to read a statement from community residents who are standing in solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Good morning, everyone. My name's Haley Duncan. I work at the Sierra Club on their Beyond Dirty Fuels golf team, and we are trying to stop all of the gas exports that are proposed in the Gulf. So one of the issues with the FERC meeting, the supposed open meeting, is that the agenda for this meeting is only released 1 week in advance. And so that really prevents community members from being able to come to DC to listen to the decisions that are being made in real time. And so because of that, I wanted to read a statement from James Hyatt and Mr. John Allaire, who both live in the Southwest Louisiana area. So their statement is, FERC must center its permitting responsibility on the people and communities that will be most impacted by the project. Commonwealth LNG proposes to build a liquefaction and export terminal directly at the mouth of the Calcasieu River in a community already ravaged by a succession of major hurricanes, coastal erosion, and its susceptibility to sea level rise. The gas export terminal is clearly not in the public or national interest, and certainly not in the interest of the people and communities that they are trying to build it in. What's at risk if for placing a huge liquefaction methane terminal directly adjacent to people's homes? What is the safest distance for people to live in? And what is the emergency response plan for that project? The answer is we don't know. We've seen the debacle at Freeport LNG, and we cannot afford to risk an even bigger explosion in the Southwest Louisiana area. Freeport should be seen as a clear example of these dangerous facilities that belong nowhere near anyone's home or community. Besides the risk of catastrophic explosions, there are environmental impacts that have not been clearly addressed or adequately addressed by this permitting process. The other regulatory agencies involved in Commonwealth's permitting, including EPA and NOAA, have both requested more information about the environmental and community impacts of this project. For FERC to grant the certificate would be permanent, and in reality, premature, and in reality, it should not be granted at all, especially for this location. The long-term environmental and climate damages far outweigh any perceived economical impact this facility would provide for the local community. We are grateful that the two FERC commissioners visited Southwest Louisiana last month, and it's time for them to make the right decision to deny Commonwealth's permit and not to build this LNG export terminal. We continue to demand that FERC be accountable to the people, not corporations. And just to add some clarity, one of the projects on FERC's agenda today is Commonwealth LNG, and we, as the statement says, aren't exactly sure what the purpose of this facility being on the agenda is, given the questions that EPA and NOAA have. So we are watching very closely to see what FERC decides today about this project, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Haley. Thank you for that so much. And thank you to the residents from Southwest Louisiana who are standing up in solidarity. So we want to continue fighting this. We are going to get ready to go into the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission open meeting. And we want to make sure that we're listening, that our voices are heard. Tweet it out. If you're watching this, if you are watching the FERC open meeting and waiting for it to start at 10 a.m., remember to tweet out Freeport to FERC. Remember that we need you all to lift every voice. Lift every voice. We need more people to add in their public comments. And more importantly, we don't want to have to bring our friends who live in good, balmy weather all the way to the cold of D.C. We are asking Freeport to change that hashtag. Change it to FERC to Freeport. We need y'all to come down and have a public meeting in Freeport. Is that what y'all need? Amen. So we're going to open it up for questions in case there's any. While we're waiting on that, we're going to have our good friend Herb. If you all are looking to find out more information, there's some great sites to follow. HealthyGulf.org, Sierra Club, Earthworks, Climate Nexus. Shout them out. SaveTexas.com. Come on now, SaveTexas.com. Y'all go ahead and look at this and find out more information. See the footage right on deck. Are there any questions for our good friends that came from all the way from Freeport? Yes, and also please visit the Citizens for Clean Air and Water website of Brazoria County. They have a Facebook page. They have a website. Please look them up. Citizens for Clean Air and Water of Freeport and Brazoria County. All right. Go ahead. Thank you for watching. Remember, hashtag Freeport to FERC with Citizens for Clean Air and Water of Freeport and Brazoria County. We got the popo. I think it's time for us to go now. We're going to go into the meeting. Make sure y'all watch the open meeting for FERC and tell FERC, come down to Freeport. It's too cold to be bringing these people up here to cold D.C. Come down to Freeport and talk to the people. All right, now, y'all got anything you want to say real quick? All right, now, we're going to go sage this place down. All right.